Hey, everybody. Let's check in here and make sure we're all good in the hood. Yep, looks like we're okay. Sound, audio, video, all of that. We had some little audio weirdness on Friday, and I realized it was because of me. It was a setting on the soundboard that I had forgotten I had set for a Zoom call. Anyway, I think we're back to normal now. And here we are for Critical Q&A live on this Sunday, the 23rd of June, in the year of our Lord, 2024. Thank you for joining me today for this. It is a very torturous 95 degrees outside right now here in Denver, if I have my numbers right. It says 93 on my phone. It feels like it's really, really hot out there. We are definitely experiencing a heat wave of proportions. Now, let me get the Q&A set up right now, because I always forget to get this going right away. So let us not forget this time. Please put your questions. Let's get this properly done. Under this comment and start the Q&A. So in the chat box, you now have a comment, I believe, up at the top that says, please put your questions under this comment, and then you can start throwing the questions in there. And let's flip over to the host and chat screen there, so we get you guys up on the screen as well, so we can see your comments as we're going. Excellent. Glad everything is back to battery here. Okay, so as you guys are getting that done, it's interesting to me. I will just comment on this. Let me just say this about the state of things in the ex-Scientology community right now. We are in what is called a lull period. There's not a lot happening when it comes to cults sometimes. They're not always in the news. There's not always interesting things happening with them. There are not always the latest and greatest stories and escapees, testimonies, and legal battle milestones, and media reports and exposés, which all of these things I'm listing here tend to be the points that we congregate around and talk about when it comes to what's going on with cults in America or in the world. We tend to focus, by the way, I don't know if you all noticed this or not, but we tend to focus an awful lot on cults in the United States and in England sometimes. We very rarely venture outside those territories. There's always something going on with cults in the world. I tried to, when I was doing my little news show, I was trying to point that out by going international with some of the stories. But the high interest ones are always, of course, about the people who are most like us and how they're being tortured, abused, hurt, etc. Anyway, there's not a lot happening. Sometimes there are these lull periods, and when this occurs, I just wanted to throw this out there, that when this sort of thing occurs, it really becomes clear that in order to continue generating more drama and more content, people will tend to make it up. They'll just generate it. And we get a lot of some of the worst infighting going on in the communities during these lull periods and stuff. So just something I thought I'd point out, because I've noticed it many, many times over the years. And it's just, I thought, something worth commenting on. Okay, so we've got some questions coming in on the chat box, which is great. And what I'm going to do is, while those keep coming in, I'm going to flip over to I have 3 preset questions from you guys for this week, and we'll go ahead and kick off the show with the first one. Let's hop over to this screen. Jay Purr asks, I watched Rick Ross's talk on Danny Jones' podcast, and there Ross explained that when he does cult intervention, in about 7 out of 10 cases, the cult member ends up leaving the cult. 7 out of 10 sounds very good to me. Maybe too good to be true. Do you know Ross's cult intervention approach, and what do you think about it? To whom is it really applied? Okay, I have never spoken with Rick Ross one-on-one or had an interview with him or anything like that. So I can't speak with any personal knowledge about the man. I only know what I know from having spoken with people about him in and out of the ex-cult world, and from what I have read on Wikipedia and otherwise. There is a Wikipedia page on him. In fact, we're going to go to it in a minute. But I thought I would take this up on the basis not so much of Rick Ross as the concept of talking about success rates with interventions. First off, I wanted to kind of shoot that in the, kind of not in the foot, but sort of shoot that dead, that idea, because it's akin to, talking about success rates with interventions is akin to talking about success rates for a psychologist treating anxiety. It's a little bit like, okay, but why are you talking about that? Like, that's not, would you judge the skill set of a psychologist based on that? Well, to some degree. I mean, hopefully they're helping people, but how do you, anyway, it's a little bit of an ethical, really? That's what you're promoting? That's how you're promoting that? Okay, fine. Because here's the thing about cult intervention is you're not tied at the hip with the person that you've done or helped facilitate an intervention with a family or with an individual coming out of a cult. You're not joined at the hip with them for the rest of their life. So once the intervention's over, you don't know necessarily what's going to happen to them. And I guess the word I would use is recidivism, but maybe that's the wrong word. Cult hopping, the idea that people will go back to their cult or go find another group very similar and join it. That happens all the time. And so, so if you say, well, I have a success rate because I got this guy out of, Scientology or NXIVM, but then they go and join the Moonies, or they go and start, following Deepak Chopra's pseudoscientific nonsense, or go attend some, LGAT or join an MLM or something. I mean, have you really succeeded? I mean, there's arguments to be made about this. I'm not making them necessarily. I'm just pointing out that there are arguments to be made about this. How do you define success exactly there? And how do you know, right? This isn't just a black and white sort of thing, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, yeah, okay, sure, he's out of his cult now, or we got her out of that group's influence, but did you really, and how long, that kind of thing. Anyway, the only reason I'm bringing this up is to point out the problems with assigning simple numbers to this activity. That's all I'm really trying to say here. I'm not trying to imply that Rick is not successful as a cult interventionist. That's not what I'm saying at all. I just want to point out the problems with citing numbers like that. Okay, so that point being made, do you know Ross's cult intervention approach, and what do you think about it? Here's the thing that I have a problem with Rick is, without getting into a whole novel, long-sized answer here about the history of cult intervention, a lot of which I cannot even speak fully intelligently about because I wasn't there when it was happening. I've only heard the stories from people who were there or people who have written about or talked about it. The 1980s and 90s were an incredibly tumultuous period when it came to cult intervention or cult work or recovery. The People's Temple tragedy, the Guyana tragedy, was 1978, and the backlash to that was intense. And we had things here in the United States where we had things like the Satanic Panic. of people freaking out, losing their goddamn minds over the concept of cults and mind control and thought reform and the power of it and what it could do. And families were freaking out about their kids joining up with the Hare Krishnas or the Moonies or, you know, anything that looked or sounded anything like the People's Temple or any group like that. Any weird, oddball, strange, religious or semi-religious group was suddenly, you know, a band of Satanists who were out, you know, to torture and ruin these poor kids. And the intervention tactics that were developed at that time were not what they are now, right? We've had development and progress in this field. And so many times, unfortunately, I have to use the word many, people were, what's the word here? Kidnapped, taken, right? Sometimes with the family's help. You know, they're in the back of a van and they find the guy or the woman on the street that they're trying to do the intervention on, and they just grab them, throw them in the van, take them to a hotel, you know, tie them down. Now that's a bit extreme, right? I've only heard of 1 or 2 instances of that, but definitely taking them to a hotel, holding them there, not letting them out, you know, forcing them to listen to the anti-cult rhetoric. This happened. This absolutely happened, and it happened a number of times. And there were people who engaged in this who had no business being anywhere near it. I think of, you know, people like Ted Patrick, and I just go, man, that was a wild guy. You know, actual criminal stuff. But the other thing about the history connected with this that you have got to keep in mind is that some of this history is written by the cults. And I'm going to give you an example, and I'm going to use Rick to give this example. Right from his Wikipedia page, one of the biggest controversies in Rick's past has been the Jason Scott deprogramming, and there's a whole paragraph here or section here about this, and it has to do with Scientology. There's a tie-in here that I think you guys are, if you don't know about this, you're going to find this very interesting. In 1991, Ross faced unlawful imprisonment charges over a forcible deprogramming of a United Pentecostal Church International member named Jason Scott, whose mother was referred to Ross by the Cult Awareness Network back when it was operating independently before Scientology bought it. Now, Ross was acquitted of these charges by the jury at trial. He was not found criminally guilty or of this crime. However, Scott later filed a civil suit against Ross, 2 of his associates in Cannes in federal court. In September 95, a 9-member jury unanimously held the defendants liable for conspiracy to deprive Scott of his civil rights and religious liberties. And this was during the intervention, of course, that they did with him. They grabbed him and they kind of forcefully intervened. In addition, the jury held that Ross and his associates intentionally or recklessly, quote, intentionally or recklessly acted in a way so outrageous in character and so extreme in degree as to go beyond all possible bounds of decency and to be regarded as atrocious and utterly intolerable in civilized community. That's a quote from the court findings. The case resulted in an award of $875,000 in compensatory damages and punitive damages in the amount of $5 million against Ross, $1 million against the Cult Awareness Network, and $250,000 against each of Ross's 2 other co-defendants. The case bankrupted the Cult Awareness Network, and a coalition of groups that were attacked by the Cult Awareness Network bought its assets. Oh, I wonder who that coalition was. And ran a new version of the Cult Awareness Network, which became active in religious freedom causes. Okay, so according to some guy, Eugene Gallagher, an American professor of religious studies at Connecticut College, the Scott case marked a watershed for non-traditional religions in North America. Non-traditional religions meaning cults. Now, here's where it gets You hear all that and you think, my God, who is this man? How could he? What happened here? And I'm not apologizing for any criminal or awful behavior on the part of Rick Ross or anybody else. But I'm going to point something out to you now. Scott later reconciled with his mother, who had originally hired Ross to deprogram him. Scott terminated his lawyer, and who was his lawyer? Kendrick Moxon, the same prominent Scientology attorney that we all know and love, was Jason Scott's lawyer during this trial. And so Scott terminated Kendrick Moxon and was persuaded by his mother to settle with Ross. Under the terms of the settlement, the two agreed that Ross would pay Scott $5,000, not $1 million or $5 million in damages. He paid $5,000 and he provided 200 hours of his professional services to Jason Scott. So rather than get Rick Ross out of his life, he actually got Rick to give him service in some fashion. The settlement between Scott and Ross was leaked to the Washington Post, which reportedly angered Scott. Graham Barry, his new attorney, Jason Scott's attorney, said that it would be a mistake to assume that Scott's decision to make use of Ross's time was a vindication of Ross or his deprogramming methods, and refused to say what services Ross would supply under the agreement. Yes. Now, according to the book American Countercultures, Ross and others forwarded the notion that charismatic leaders were able to brainwash college-age youths and that such cases were in need of forcible removal from the cult environment and deprogramming. That was the assertion, is that these charismatic leaders were brainwashing these kids and they had to forcibly remove them and browbeat them and convince them and wake them up forcibly. And in a book Ross self-published in 2014, he wrote that after the Scott case, he stopped involuntary deprogramming work with adults. However, he did not change or adopt the ethical code that other cult interventionists started to adopt, and he formed his own. He disagreed with the general ethical guidelines that were drawn up by certain cult interventionists who I know and have worked with, and he kind of put out his own. And according to his website, where he breaks down his cult intervention approach, he said that there seems to still be some old school deprogramming attitudes there. He said, quote, hopefully someday, this is Rick Ross saying this, hopefully someday the need for involuntary interventions will be recognized through new legislation, and families who feel this is their last hope will receive help. That's a quote from his website. So he's still of a frame of mind that involuntary deprogramming is maybe something that's necessary from time to time or under certain circumstances. And I'm going to tell you from my experience and knowledge of this that no, you don't use cult tactics or methods to break somebody out of a cult. It just doesn't, it's not good for them, basically, right? It's also criminal. This is also the other, added point on that. And I am not in any way, shape, or form right now saying or implying that Rick is doing involuntary deprogramming at this time. The quote I just read said that he hasn't been doing that since the 90s, but his website clearly doesn't condemn the practice. He actually writes that hopefully legislators will eventually realize that sometimes that's necessary. I would disagree on philosophical grounds and psychological grounds with that assertion, right? Me personally, and other cult intervention folks that who have done way, years and years and years. I've only been involved in 2 of these things, okay? Lots and lots of people out there have done way, way, way more work. And the ones that I'm in touch with, say Pat Ryan and Joe Kelly, for example, Rachel Bernstein has been involved in interventions, Steve Hassan has done interventions, and they have not been involuntary deprogramming. So the approach can work without having to do that stuff. The success rate, if you will, from what I've been told, of the 1980s style, you know, kidnap them, throw them in a hotel room for a few days and force them to change, is about 50-50. You know, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. If Rick is getting better rates of success with that now, he's reporting here 70%. Good on him. It's probably a reflection of the change, right? I don't know, you know, statistically speaking, what success rates are out there, because again, this isn't how people really talk about this. Cult intervention is a last step approach. It's the last thing you can do. If that, you know what I mean? Like when nothing else has worked or will work, that's when you do an intervention. There's so much work you can do with a family or with the friends of somebody who's in a cult without having to intervene in their lives. And it's very, very akin to a drug or alcohol intervention where, you know, it's about caring and love and compassion and helping the person, not forcing them to do anything. You can't force somebody to change their beliefs. You can't. It's in their mind, it's in their brain, it's in their head, right? You will never know if you have successfully changed their beliefs. You only know what they're telling you, you know? And if you really, really want to do it right, you've got to do it in such a way that, you know, you're like that thought fortress. Remember my old analogy about a thought fortress? This is really super important as far as I'm concerned when it comes to how to change hearts and minds. You can browbeat somebody, yell and scream at somebody, beat on them, hurt them to get them to change, but you're attacking a fortress in their mind. And that fortress is impenetrable. You cannot bust through the walls of a mental fortress. Not unless you so thoroughly abuse the person physically with sleep deprivation, food deprivation, and other means of torture that you break the person. And breaking them is turning them into, you know, like a psychotic version of themselves. That's not how you change hearts and minds. Not if you really want to help the person, right? So you can do it if you beat on the person long enough. Yeah, okay, fine. You break them, but that's not, you know, that's crazy. That's psychotic. So that's not the approach to take, right? Okay, so that's what I've got to say about all of that. You know, his cult intervention approach, when I looked over it and talked with others about it, is very similar to what other cult interventionists do now. It hasn't always been that way with Rick or with others. But, you know, over time, people see what works. And when things work better and better and better, then people want to adopt those things if they're truly in this field to help. And I do think Rick is in this field to help. I don't think he's some shyster or something. There's a lot of conflict around the man, but that's just interpersonal rivalry and jealousy and conflict and personality conflicts and stuff. Not as far, at least as far as I can tell from my experience with this. And there you go. Okay, so let's switch back to this screen here. Get off of the commercial. All right. Good. Let's go back to our question box now. And comments should start appearing on the screen here in a second. It always resets them for some reason. All right, one moment and we will get to your questions. All right. Oh, good. Lots and lots here. All right, starting from the top. Ex-Scn asks, how do you think Bijou Phillips is doing after Danny Masterson? Is she publicly abandoning Scientology now? I have absolutely no idea, and I don't think anybody else does either. I'm going to be really blunt on this, right? Because I guess she filed for divorce from Danny, and other than that, I don't know a goddamn thing about Bijou Phillips. You know, how do I think she's doing? I think she's devastated. I think her life has just been thrown into, you know, the worst possible place it could be, right? Her main, you know, supporter and husband and father to her daughter and all of that is now in jail and is a convicted felon, sexual predator. And she may or may not believe that. I have absolutely no idea. So I really can't speak much more to it than that. I'm sure she's not doing well, though. I wouldn't be. I mean, you know. Ugh. And I have no idea if she's abandoning Scientology right now or not. I don't think anybody does. It's nothing but pure conjecture, any reports on her, unless we're going to get an interview with her directly, and I have not seen or heard anything like that. All right. Young Matador, hey, Chris, have you ever had one question that you'd love to ask Miscavige if you bumped into him in the street? Yeah, I have more than one question for Miscavige. I got all kinds of questions for him. I mean, along the lines of, you know, where do you get off changing Hubbard's policies and saying that you're following them? I could ask specific references and points on that, such as the ideal org strategy and the fact that these opening up orgs in places where there's no foot traffic of any kind. Why are you doing that? Why are you changing the tech? Why are you, you know, there's all those kind of questions. And then there's also just simply, how do you sleep at night, motherfucker? Right? Just straight up. What the hell is your problem? You know, do you even believe in Scientology? How can you say you do when you do this and this and this, which is completely contrary to what it says in the materials of Scientology? Not that Scientology's materials are wonderful, great things, but, you know, even with that, he's such a rank, you know, hypocrite that I think there's a ton of questions to ask him along those lines. All right, ex-Scn. A friend recently said he was too smart to get involved in anything like Scientology. Did he? And how could anyone be so stupid? I know you answered this before, but can you give an answer I can show him? Absolutely. Of course you can. The simplicity of it is this. If you can be lied to or deceived in any way, and any of us can be, then you can be recruited into a group that it does not have your best interests at heart. You can be made to join something under false pretenses, or made to do something by luring you in under a lie, right? Or at least a lack of informed consent as to what's going to be done, how it's going to be done, how much it's going to cost. You know, you don't know any of that stuff up front when you join a group like Scientology or the Moonies or something. You think you're joining one thing because it's presented to you as, you know, this bed of roses you're going to be able to lay in all day, and it's going to be the wonderful, beautiful thing, and it's bringing the world together, and, you know, it's going to save your marriage or save your job or fix some problem you have, or you're going to finally have community. You're finally going to have the support you've been looking for. You finally found your tribe. Whatever it is that you're telling yourself that is leading you into this group, that's not the truth of the situation. You are being lied to, and any human being can be lied to and can believe those lies under the right circumstances, the right words, the right way, from the right person. They're attractive, or they're charismatic, or they're interesting to you for some reason, or they are an authority figure to you for some reason. You feel compelled to listen to them. This is what cult recruitment is all about. It's not any different than when a narcissistic predator goes and starts a relationship with a woman or a man and presents the best possible version of themselves, doesn't say anything about their dark and sordid past or their criminal history or any of that. They only put up this false veneer that looks and sounds amazing. And that's the whole point, is it looks and sounds amazing. It is not actually amazing. And any of us can fall for that. Show me the human being who cannot be lied to, who can't be deceived. They don't exist. So if that person, if that's the truth, and it is, then anyone can fall for a recruitment scam. That doesn't mean you're gonna fall for Scientology's recruitment scam. Maybe you do see right through that. Maybe from day one you went, L. Ron Hubbard, Dianetics, right? Fine, you didn't fall for that. You fell for the Moonies. Right? Or you fell for, you know, some other ideological cult or some social justice cult or some sports cult or some business cult. You got involved with an MLM, you idiot. Right? And there you go, right down the cult rabbit hole of multi-level marketing, right? And away we go. So that's how the reality of the situation. Anybody can be fooled. It's just a matter of, what do you need to be told? What do you need to see and hear in order for that to happen? And there's no one who is so smart that they don't fall for deceptive practices or deceit. Okay. All right. Let's see what we got here. Not sure. Atalia. Jen. Fabian, this is an interesting question, but I don't know how to answer it. What do you think about LRH's first mate on the Apollo, Jen Atalia? I have never heard of that person. I have no idea who you are talking about. So I don't know how to answer that question. I'm sorry, Fabian. I don't know who that person is. I've never even heard of them. Jen Atalia. Is that, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing a joke or something. Anyway, please clarify, or maybe I just don't know. I'm not sure. Okay, ex-Scn. Was it all work in the Sea Org, also in the RPF, or were there fun times too? Did you stay friends with non-Scientologists once you got involved? Okay. For me, it was mostly work, for sure. Let's see here. Yeah, of course there were fun times. I mean, you know, you make fun. You make it into that. Or sometimes there was, especially early on. The Sea Org got more and more oppressive the longer I was in it. When I first got in '95, it was actually a little looser and a little more freestyle, a little bit more fun than it became very, very quickly. I was there, I joined in '95, and by 1996 is when the PAC ethics mission happened, when Jenny Linson and a whole crew of people came down to PAC from the INT base and rained bloody hell down on us for 3 straight months. It was torture. People were getting RPF'd every day for like the first month. Just marched right to the RPF, just go, right? Just assigned by Jenny. And she thought it was hilarious. She was just so evil, that woman. Oh, I just have nothing but hate for her. She was just being the worst version of herself. Let's put it that way. And she thought it was funny. She was really getting off on it. And people were just being tortured that year, right? And that's when things got awful. It was 1996. So it was right after I got in. My first Sea Org day in 1995 was the best Sea Org day I ever had. We partied for 2 straight days. It was awesome. You know, it just went downhill fast after that. Sea Org day got shorter and shorter until when I was leaving the Sea Org, it was like maybe a quarter day or half day off if you were lucky for the ceremony, and that was about it. So our joy was sort of being slowly robbed from us by David Miscavige over the years that I was in the Sea Org. And I'm sure other people could say the same thing for the years prior. It was probably even looser and wilder and more freestyle before I got in. And, you know, before they started putting the thumb screws on harder and harder with the ethics trips. And Miscavige just became a beast in the 90s. I mean, an absolute monster. And of course, in the 2000s, he then, you know, started the whole when he had, you know, pretty much lost any sense of decency or conscience at all. Okay, so let's see here. Did I stay friends with non-Scientologists once I got involved? As a staff member in Santa Barbara, I tried for a little while to maintain relations with some of my high school friends and stuff, but you know how that goes. And I saw a couple of them a few times after. Oh, can you close my door? Mel's back home. Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna totally break here. Come here, buddy. Come here. Come here. Let me show you. Got some Benson cam for you here. All right, you're on camera right now, buddy. See, the whole world loves you. All right, come on down. Here, let's get you out of here. All right. Sorry about that. She closed the door and Benson was left in the room here, and he didn't like it, so had to get him out of there. Okay, so where was I? Oh yeah, non-Scientology friends. So yeah, so I tried, you know, but that didn't last very long. And before too long in Santa Barbara and otherwise, my entire circle of friends was just Scientologists, as by design, right? Again, the cults want that. So yeah, that happened to me for sure. And by the time I was in the Sea Org, I didn't know anybody outside of the church. I did not have any friends really outside of Scientology. No. All right. Let's carry on here. Ex-Scn, I get a lot of promo. A lot. I get a lot of promo from various Scientology orgs. Is there a way to stop it all, or would I have to tackle one at a time, and will it work, or should I just continue to ignore it? It's been 40 plus years. Man, I know, right? Do not get on Scientology's mailing list. It's hard to get off. The reason for it is because every single individual Scientology organization has their own database called Central Files of all of their customers. And they send that information every week up to the continental level, which has a list of all the names and addresses of everybody from that in that continental zone. All the organizations in that zone send up their Central Files information, and it goes up to the continental, what's called continental addresso, right? The names and addresses of these people. That gets forwarded from the continental level all over the world up to the international level, where they have an int addresso, which is the master database of every single person who's ever bought anything in Scientology, books or services or anything. And this list is full of duplicates and bad names, bad addresses, bad data. People have muffed this up so badly over the years, and it's been years and years and years of cleanup, even when I was in trying to fix this. And I'll give you an example. Is I was out in Twin Cities, and I was given a list of 900 names of all the people in Minnesota or the surrounding area who had ever done or been involved with Scientology in Minnesota. 900 names from the int addresso list. And I called, or had called, every single name on that list. We went through that list multiple times. And I went knocking on doors using that list. And I found people who had bought a Dianetics book in a swap meet in the 70s, still on our list, noted on the list as a class 4 auditor and clear. All they ever did was buy a book, and somehow over the years that got morphed into clear class 4. So these lists are a mess, and that's just one of so many examples I ran into over the years when I was doing the door-to-door recovery work. So these levels of these databases are all mucked up They're not, it's not a centralized, unified, monolithic system, right? It's as piecemeal as you can imagine. And it's a mess. So when you ask off a mailing list from the Church of Scientology, you're actually asking, sorry. Then also the Sea Org orgs get these lists, that get these names and addresses as well. So ASHO, the American St. Hill Organization, AO, the Advanced Organization of Los Angeles, Flag in Clearwater, they have all these names and addresses too for their area. So they're mailing out. So when you ask off of Dallas Org's mailing list, maybe they'll take you off of their mailing list, but you're still on ASHO's, AO's, Flags, and it's still an int addresso. And those names go back and forth and up and down and all of this, and it's just a fucking disaster. And they have maybe 2 or 3 people working on this. Maybe, you know? So there you go. That's what I can say about that. So as far as, so that was all just the explanation. So what should you do about it? Basically, you have to persist or ignore it. It's pretty much best to just ignore it and throw it out, burn it. Maybe I've heard that return to sender, sending them aftermath cards, sending them Xenu data, like writing just straight up confidential information on it, return to sender, take me off your list, you know, or calling them and threatening legal action will speed things up. But maybe. So those are, you know, some of the outrageous, nonsensical things you have to do. You can't just make a phone call and get off the list. It does, unfortunately, Scientology don't work that way. Okay, Fabian Andel asks, what do you think about hypnosis after having been subjected to it for so long? That's a really interesting way of asking me that question. Nobody's ever really asked me that like that before. I don't have a problem with hypnosis as a clinical practice. I'm aware of the fact that it can be useful in certain contexts to help people. And it's not and there's informed consent, person knows what's going on. There's no like weird thing there, right? Clinical hypnotism is a really regulated and ethically guided practice. Linda Dubrow-Marshall, one of my professors who I interviewed on my podcast a couple weeks ago, is a trained clinical hypnotist, and I've talked with her about that, and she's like, you know, regulation. She's very, very safe practitioner. So I know, and I've also spoken with other people who have been, who are clinical hypnotherapists, and they've reported to me, they've told me, yeah, absolutely, you can get results with this. You can help people lose weight. You can help people stop smoking. You can help them with chronic bad habits or routines they want to change or do something about. You can help nudge them along to do that. So that's my attitude about hypnosis in a clinical setting is I'm okay with that, and I don't have a problem with it. I'm not feeling like, oh, down with all hypnosis everywhere. You know, it doesn't matter if I say that or not anyway, or go pound the pavement. People are going to keep doing it no matter what. What I would really like is an ethical practice of it. So I'll push for that instead of banning it or trying to get rid of it. That's not going to work. It's too easy to do. There's too many people susceptible to it, and there's too many ways to go about inducing it for it to be practical to ban the practice of hypnotism. It's just not ever going to really work. Putting people into trance states is nothing. It's nothing at all to do. We do it when we watch TV. Kids do it in classrooms. You enter this other state. And that's just one way of putting it. Maybe it's a different brain mode of operation, or there's lots of ways to describe it. But the point is, it's going to happen, and it's inducible very, very easily. It's the unethical practice of it that I have a problem with, when people are purposefully, knowingly, and deceitfully doing it to somebody and not letting them know that's what's happening. That's where it becomes wrong, as in my view of things. And certainly Scientology or Dianetics auditing would be a classic example of that. But so would transcendental meditation, right? So would certain practices in the chanting and mantras of the Moonies, or, you know, the certain evangelicals, right? The what is the Pentecostals? I was thinking about the Pentecostals, right? Those guys go into trance states all the time. It's just all over the place. You know, you can't get away from it. So, it's just some of my thoughts about it. All right. Carry on here. Stewart, what's the best thing for humanity that a destructive cult has done? Probably a byproduct of a front group or something like that. Wow, you guys really get me thinking with some of these questions. That's a good question. Let's see. The best thing. Well, I'll tell you the one I'm most aware of, the one that comes to mind right away for me. And of course, I'm most familiar with Scientology. It's the most outrageous, hypocritical, infuriating thing. But it's true. What I'm about to tell you is absolutely true. The Church of Scientology produces, by far, out of everything I have seen, and I've gone looking, the best materials to teach children about human rights that I have anywhere. They do. The Youth for Human Rights campaign, the booklets, the public service announcements, the explanations, the educational materials, they're really good. And they really teach about human rights in a decent, sensible way. And it's material that would make a difference. It should be used. I mean, it's the only thing that comes out of the Church of Scientology that I actually feel like I could endorse it. If it didn't come out of Scientology, I'd be like, oh my God, we must disseminate this, right? But because it comes out of Scientology, I'm loath to even talk about it. You know, you see me sitting here all conflicted when I shouldn't be. These are, you know, this is stuff that's important to teach kids. And the Church of Scientology is doing that, right? And they're not doing it a whole lot anymore. I haven't heard too much about Youth for Human Rights in a while, but those materials are really good. So that comes to mind, right? It's certainly the best thing that Church of Scientology's ever done. I mean, the Way to Happiness has nothing on these materials. The Way to Happiness is a piece of crap compared to the human rights stuff. I don't know. It's what I think, right? And the source of it, awful. I mean, the Church of Scientology violating people's human rights in the production of those materials about human rights, right? The bridge staff, the printing staff, right? The New Era publications guys over in Europe, same drill as Bridge Publications in America. I mean, these guys are just being, you know, it's practically slave labor. And yet they're producing some of the best stuff you can find on human rights. It's mind-boggling. It's one of the biggest double binds I'm aware of in Scientology, beyond the communication double bind of you can't communicate with people we tell you can't communicate with, but communication is the universal solvent, right? That's a double bind of magnitude in Scientology. And so is this human rights thing. Huge. All right. Okay, ex-Scn, can you tell us what's in your book, Scientology A to Xenu? Chapters, do you have a paperback version? Well, as a matter of fact, I only have a paperback version. This is the only version that you can get printed. It is a soft cover. And I swear I don't plant these questions, okay. So this book covers, well, I'll just tell you some of the chapters. Why anyone should listen to me is chapter 1, and it's the only part of this book where I actually talk about myself. Chapter 2 is bitter defrocked apostates, why you should listen to former members. Chapter 3 is how Scientology presents itself to the world. 4 is Scientology bona fide religion or destructive cult? Chapter 5 is why Scientology is imploding. Chapter 6 is who was L. Ron Hubbard. Chapter 7 is an important aspect of the brainwashing, which we get into with keeping Scientology working, and some other stuff, because Chapter 8 is there anything good in Scientology? Meh. Chapter 9 is the keeping Scientology working mind trap. 10 is pseudoscience and the purification rundown. That's all in here. Chapter 11 is the big one, why Scientologists believe they are saving the world, or here's the part about Xenu. And here's where I break down all the OT levels all the way up through OT 7. And then there is Chapter 12 about the Office of Special Affairs. Chapter 13, the insanity that is Scientology's organizational structure. Chapter 14 is Scientology's most powerful lie. And I won't tell you what that is. You got to read the book. And then chapters 15, 16, and 17 have to do with cult recovery and talking to people in Scientology and getting them out. Okay, so thanks for asking me that. And I hope you check out my book. It's all still relevant and good stuff. You can get it as an audiobook on Amazon as well as a printed book or ebook. All right. There's our commercial announcement, and thank you for that question. All right, Fabian again. How are traumatic experiences treated in Scientology when they involve, for instance, mental abuse? Well, what comes to mind here is they're treated the same way as physically abusive instances or experiences. In Dianetics, there are 3 words to describe mental phenomena connected with trauma. An engram is a moment of pain and unconsciousness that is recorded in your reactive mind, which can be fed back to you later on. The words and the feelings and perceptions can come back and re-stimulate, they call it. And that's the source of all of your problems, sicknesses, travails, you know, and anything. Any problem you're having, it's engrams. Now, engrams are are instances of physical pain and unconsciousness, even if it's only for a few microseconds of unconsciousness, but you're out. You're not really operating. And there's a spectrum. You can be less conscious, more conscious. But it's physical pain. Mental anguish or emotional pain, that kind of trauma, are called secondaries. They're not called engrams. If you have a moment where you are experiencing deep anguish, fear, loss, those kind of emotions, right? You're just really upset. You're losing your damn mind. Or not so much, right? Anything, anywhere on the spectrum. Emotional loss is rooted in an earlier engram, according to L. Ron Hubbard. You wouldn't have that emotional trauma without the earlier physical trauma that it's anchored to. That's the theory. So that's why it's called a secondary, because it's secondary to the engram. It always comes after. And the third kind of incident is called a lock. And a lock is an instance where the perceptions and awarenesses or this, you know, the sight, smells, sounds, whatever, of the engram are approximated in the real world right now, and you have a restimulation moment, and that's called a lock, right? Maybe your head gets a little funny, or you feel buzzy, or, you know, something's wrong, or there's some problem because of the engram. And so the lock is just a lock on the engram. It kind of locks the engram more into place, is I believe why it's called that. So those are the 3 kinds of incidents that Dianetics talks about that are connected to your reactive mind. And so traumatic experiences in Scientology involving mental abuse would probably fall under that kind of thing. Now, if you're asking more about like somebody psychologically torturing you or something, that could be seen and recognized as legit in an auditing session, let's say. If you were running a process about, you know, I don't know, trying to stay away from sec checking because that gets all into your own overts and stuff. I don't know. You could be running a process, or you could be doing a PTS rundown, which is an audited action. You're in session doing, you know, looking at past suppressive people in your life, all the way back into past lives even. And you could certainly talk about a suppressive person mentally, psychologically torturing you or baiting you or gaslighting you or doing any of these things. I could even see instances where Scientologists would use those terms to talk about the behavior of the suppressive towards them. So, sure. So it could be dealt with that way as well. Okay. Ex-Scn, have you been to any the places to go to in Denver that you could recommend? Theaters, parks, etc. Okay, there we go. Yes, in Denver. I mean, City Park is nice. There are some great restaurants here. I mean, Shanahan's was probably the best food I've ever had as far as a place to go. Stanley Park is really nice too. Stanley Lake. There's a whole park lake thing there. That's really a great place to go. When I think about places I would recommend to people, I start thinking outside Denver though. Like when I talk to my family or friends or whatever about coming to Colorado or coming to visit in Denver, it's all about, you know, let's go down to Pikes Peak or let's go up to the Estes Park where the hotel is. Oh my God, how am I forgetting? Oh my God. So stupid. Yeah, the Stanley Hotel. For some reason, I had that in my head, and I thought it wasn't right. The Stanley Hotel, yeah, in Estes Park. That's the place that inspired The Shining. Stephen King stayed at the hotel and was like, oh, I had an idea for a story. And that's where The Shining came from. Love that place. You know, you can go up and visit there. Those are places I would recommend. Yeah. All right. So. There's some nice places in Denver. Golden is a kind of a cool place. I went and saw some independent theater over in Golden at this little tiny place, little hole-in-the-wall theater. It was really fun. You know, you just find these places. There's lots to do here. Denver is a very, very interesting place to be. Yeah, the Tesla self-drive at Pikes Peak. I'll tell you what, I have driven up to Pikes Peak and down once. I'm never doing it again. Those roads don't have guardrails, and they are scary as hell. I have never been as scared on a road as I was driving up to Pikes Peak and then driving back down. Because it's right, I mean, you're right there. The road, and there's the cliff, and there you go, right? And you better be good. I would never trust a Tesla to drive me up there. Mark is a braver man than I am. Okay. All right, let's skip. Oh my God, it's already been an hour. All right, let's skip over to our question number 2 preset here. Gary Morris, if Scientology is so humanitarian, then why do they have such organizations and punishments such as the RPF, the CCHR, and the whole? Well, obviously, Gary, is because Scientology lies about being a humanitarian, charitable religious group. Scientology is no such thing. It's an authoritarian dictatorship that uses religious cloaking and other flowery language to hide what it's really doing. It's a money-making scam. That's all it is. Everything else is window dressing. Everything. Right? It's all about methods and means of control to psychologically enslave its members and put them in a state of submission to the church through the ethics system, through the euphoria that is induced by the auditing, the back and forth. You get this trauma bonding effect in the bigger picture, long arc of this, and people get kind of stuck to it. And there's push and pull and all that, and that's what Scientology really is. That's what it really is. It's just a authoritarian control system. So, the humanitarian thing, that's just a word they use, And that's why there's things like RPF and CCHR and the whole, because it's their way or the highway, right? And when you're in a group, this is, okay, when you're in a group, any group, anywhere, any circumstance, where everybody in the group or the leader of the group is telling everybody in the group, we're all there is, we're everything you're going to need, we are the truth and the light, and nobody else comes close to us, and they all wish they could be us, and we're the best, and we're the brightest, and we're the most intelligent, and we're the upper 10th of the upper 20th of humankind. You're in a cult. You're in a group that is way over selling itself to itself, and you don't want to be in that situation, right? And any group that's doing that is gonna be culty. They're gonna go there if they're not already there, because that kind of power and ego trip emboldens and empowers people to do abusive things. It makes it okay for them to hurt people, to abuse other people, to damage or interfere with other people's lives in a meaningful and substantial way, because they're so sure they're right. We are so good. We are so right. We are so pure. I must get everybody on board with this. Oh, everybody needs to know. Man, I'm telling you, if you are in that headspace, you got to pull back. That is not a good place to be. I don't care what the subject is. This is not a good place to be, right? There's no topic or subject that any human being has ever invented or come up with that is all that in a slice of bread, right? And a cup of biscuits, whatever. It just doesn't exist. Everything we do is flawed. Everything we do, it has pretty much the elements of its own destruction in its DNA. We constantly build things only to tear them down. And that's the human condition. It's not a matter of bad, good, right, wrong. It's just what we do. So Scientology is one of these abusive groups where they've just taken it too far. Things have just gotten out of hand. They're too full of themselves, and they lose their damn minds. And it's never been, the lie, of course, in the question is, it's never been humanitarian. And you're obviously pointing that out and asking the question, right? And you're nailing it, because they're not humanitarian at all. The Scientology as a body, as an institution, barely understands the concepts of charity and compassion and care for other people outside of the group. David Miscavige didn't write those human rights education materials, right? Neither did L. Ron Hubbard. They were written by people who actually had their head together on the topic, and they just happened to be used by Scientology, It's not humanitarian. Okay, so point made. Let's go back. Here we go. All right. Let's see here. Oh, thanks for that super chat. I just happened to see it in the chat here, but Best Tom. I wouldn't normally see that in that box. You got to put them on. You got to put your questions in the regular box. But anyway, any thoughts on Ayn Rand? I have some thoughts on Ayn Rand. Yeah. Now I'm no expert. Okay, I read The Fountainhead just like all the other boys did when I was about 13, 14 years old. And after I read a much shorter book that she had written called, I believe, called Anthem, and I did read Atlas Shrugged. I did, yeah, I did Fountainhead, and I did read Atlas Shrugged, and this was many, many, many years ago, and when I was still very, very much in a Scientology headspace, where I found a lot more to agree with in her work than I do now. Scientologists definitely are more aligned to her way of thinking. It's a very, very selfish, her objectivism philosophy that emerges from this stuff is very, very selfish. And she herself was sort of a semi-proto kind of faux cult leader, as I understand it. But I don't really like her work. I find it to be much, I find it to harp too much on the self and not give enough regard to the responsibilities of the social contract. I'm a real hardcore believer in the social contract. We get along because we all make certain agreements and follow certain rules and guidelines so that to facilitate that getting along. This is the oil that keeps the machinery of our society and culture going, is manners and etiquette and rules and laws and things like that. And all of us agree to this as part of our social contract. We kind of don't have much of a choice when we're born into the society that we're born into to accept the rules that we have to live under when we're growing up. But we can always move or change locations and get out from under authoritarian or horrible systems and to better ones. But no matter what system you're in, it follows this sort of social contract that we're all going to kind of get along to get along. And Ayn Rand, in her philosophy, seems to deny the reality of that, a lot like libertarians do. They sort of, it's my way and that's all that matters. And if I don't have my strong, fierce independence, then somehow society is put together wrong and is screwing me over. And it's not letting me be the full person I should be and I want to be, right? And if you want to go off and be a mountain man, you go right ahead. But if you're going to be part of this society, then you have to agree to the rules and be part of it. And there's a contribution to that, too. And there are agreements to be made. And I just feel that Ayn Rand kind of, yeah, basically, exactly, as Joe DiCeppo says, was against the welfare state right up until she got old and ill. Exactly, right? It's like people like this are strong, fierce, independent thinkers who think that you're just going to get along on your own or with the immediate circle of people around you, and they seem to have a lack of understanding of the bigger picture of society and the cog that we all are in this machine. We're all part of it. It's kind of like the day you realize you're traffic. It's that day. It's when you realize that. You go, oh, wait a minute. I'm not just in traffic, independent of it, commenting on it and yelling at it. I'm part of it. I'm in it too. And that's, it boggles me sometimes that this has to be pointed out, but there are so many people who don't realize this. And they really get on a roll about it, too. They get really, really, really pissed if you assert that, hey, there's a society and you have some responsibility to it. Oh, how dare you, right? I mean, they really, and out come the guns and everything. I mean, these are, this whole fierce independence thing. Anyway, I know I'm off a little bit off of what Ayn Rand was talking about, but that's what I think about when I think about her. And her philosophy is it empowers that side of the equation, the libertarian side. And I'm not really down with that. I'm more of a social creature who believes that, we need to give and get in order to get and vice versa. So, I don't know. I'm kind of big on the social contract. All right, so those are some thoughts there for you, and thank you again for that super chat. I don't know if you can super chat inside the Q&A box or not. I actually don't know. If any of you want to experiment and find out, I'd be okay with that. Or just let me know in the comments. I'm really not sure. Okay. ex-Scn asks, what have you wanted to do that you haven't done yet? Oh man, a lot of things. I really, really, really want to go to Europe, tour Europe. I mean, I've been to Barcelona, Spain. That's where I've been in Europe. We went there, we landed, we experienced Barcelona for a week, and we flew home via Gatwick, right? And by the way, nachos at the Gatwick airport are an atrocity, a crime against humanity. Just saying. So I would really, really like to go to certain places in Europe and in England really badly. Of course, I've met my son. I want to go down to Australia again and spend some more time with him. So those are a couple things that I'd like to do that I haven't done. I have thought about... Okay, you cannot super chat in the box. Okay, yeah, you should be able to, that's for sure. I'll try to keep my eye on the comments. You know I do try. But if I miss any super chats or if I miss any comments that are happening in the regular chat, I do apologize. I'm not doing that on purpose. Okay, so let's see, other things. I have thought long and hard about whether I would ever want to go skydiving. And I can't really make myself want to. But you know what I would love to do sometime is scuba diving. I've done some snorkeling when I was a kid, but actual diving, not necessarily deep sea diving, but you know, breath tanks, you know, that kind of oxygen tanks, right? Scuba gear. That might be a lot of fun. That'd be scary for me, but I would, that's why I'd like to do it, is to overcome that fear. I've never been an ocean guy. I've never been an ocean guy. So it would be good to do something like that. But of course I live in Denver. I'm as landlocked as it gets. So I don't know if that's ever going to happen. Other than going places, let's see. I'll tell you one other thing that I want to do. And this is just a little fantasy. This is not necessarily something I'm ever going to do. I don't know yet. But I've had this idea for many, many, many years of doing some stop motion filming, some stop motion animation. And I think that would be a lot of fun to do. I don't want to, I have this kind of Star Wars related idea of something to do that no one has done. No one's done it. You can't find any examples anywhere. I've never found anybody doing the thing I want to do. With stop motion animation in Star Wars. So I think that would be, people have done plenty of stop motion animation with Star Wars stuff. I'm just saying nobody's done the thing I'm thinking about. So, so I'm not going to give the specifics of it because I might say do it someday if I, you know, retire or whatever, have time to do something like that, which I right now can't ever see myself doing. So anyway, that's something that might be kind of fun. Yeah. Oh, it would be a blast. Okay, let's carry on here. Let's see, go back to the box. Okay, here we go. George Smiley, what can be done to heal the pain between first-gen and second-gen ex-cult members? I see this divide in play in the recent strife in the ex-Scientology community. I'm going to tell you, George, straight up, I wish I knew. I really do. I've given up on it, and maybe I shouldn't, but I do. I gave up. I don't know what to do. You know, the name calling, the antagonism, the hostility, it's senseless and it's ceaseless. It never stops. And efforts to try to assuage, apologize, you know, take responsibility, deal with stuff, never works, right? There's always something else. There's always more. And it's just so personal and so vicious. I don't want to have anything to do with it. I'm just putting it in the rearview mirror. I'm barely even commenting on social media anymore about any of that stuff because it just never ends. And I don't know how to heal those divides. There are people who are keeping this riled up. Yeah, you know, and there are things that have been said that can't be unsaid. There are things that have been done that can't be undone. They can't be, and they're unforgivable, right? They're just things that you can't. How do you get past that? I'm not going to get past certain things that have been said and done about me. I'm not going to forgive and forget. So I don't know how to do that. I wish I did. Because if I did know, I would actually do it. I care a lot about the ex-Scientology world, and I don't even recognize it anymore. I have my channel here. I have people in the outside of the ex-Scientology world that I work with. I have people in the ex-Scientology that I work with off camera in the real world, Aftermath Foundation, right? Other people that I work with, academics and professionals outside of the ex-Scientology world that I work with who see what's going on and are very confused by it and very, you know, like, what the fuck, right? Kind of thing. So I just had to kind of get away from it. And that's what I'm trying to do. And it shows, right? My audience numbers and everything is tanked, because all these people are off in drama land, and they love it. They can't get enough of it. And I don't do that, you know? So it's been really rough watching this whole thing go from an educational cult recovery, let's fight Scientology, that's what it was, to reality TV and trauma drama and fighting and who did what to who and who needs to make reparations now and who's responsible for everybody's condition now and who did, you know, and Mike and this and that and the Aftermath did all this and Leah did that, and it's so much bullshit, right? And you just are like, how did this happen? How did it go from something that was basically positive and basically recovery based and working for justice? How did that turn into reality fucking TV? I have no idea, really. I mean, I do have ideas, but I don't know how to fix that and get it back to something sensible. So all I can do is my work and do the best I can to provide sensible content from my perspective and do the best I can with that and get called all kinds of names just for what I've said today, just for putting out my opinions about what's going on with this. You know, there will be attacks. It's very, very rough. It really is. And it sucks because it's people that you used to break bread with, right? It's people that you're supposed to be on common cause with, common ground. And that's what makes it so horrible. You know, I was always ready to deal with OSA. I was ready. But OSA's never done anything even close to me that this group has. And so you go, well, how do I heal it? No, I get the fuck away from it. That's what I need to do. So that's what I'm trying to do, you know. And as error-ridden and mistake-filled as my life is, I make mistakes and I do things impulsively sometimes, and I'm working to try to not do that. But I didn't cause any of this, and I'm not trying to keep it going. I want it to just stop. I want it to go away. But it won't. There's too many people so interested in keeping it going. The internet doesn't have, you know, I saw this the other day and I wanted to share this. The internet doesn't have a break. There's no like break button. There's no like, whoa, slow down, right? When things are heating up and escalating, everybody watching is just, oh yeah, what do you should do something about that. You should say something about it. You're just going to let that person say that? You should, oh, you know, if I were you, oh, well, let me tell you. right? Everybody's got advice for you, but it's always about accelerating things and turning the dial up and up and up and up. And let's make this more incendiary and more dramatic and more clickbaity. That's all the internet does for you when it comes to this kind of stuff. So nobody's telling you, hey, whoa, 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 bring, you know, let's bring the level down and let's have a peace conference or something. No, 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 no. And Portland convinced me that there is no peace, right? That there's no possibility of that. There's every opportunity to misunderstand, misinterpret, and screw the whole thing up. That's what happened. And so, so I don't want to have anything to do with any of that. So that's as much as I want to address that. I wish I had a better answer, George. I really, truly do. But my only solution at this point has been to just get the hell away from it, because I can't calm it down. I can't control it. I can't deal with it. And I'm at me personally, I'm at the receiving end of a bunch of crap, you know, so I don't want to have anything to do with that. Okay, so let's carry on. Oh boy, 220. Okay, let's see here. You know, it's true. It's true. George also asked here a really good question. I recently watched a good documentary on Jonestown. A survivor said that he wished that drinking the Kool-Aid would disappear, as it is disrespectful to the victims of Jonestown. What do you think? I think that it can be. Absolutely. There's a gallows humor. There's an argument to be made for dark humor in recovery and catharsis. There really is. And I get the offensiveness of it. I can agree with that. It's kind of a matter of mood as far as I'm concerned, right? Disrespect isn't necessarily inherent in dark humor. Sometimes we need to make jokes and laugh to just get the emotional release from truly horrifying things in the world. And if we're banned from making little jokes or dark humor or black humor, right, however you want to describe this, then we are denying ourselves that safety valve, that release. We must be able to laugh at our pain. We have to be able to. This is vital for recovery. But then there's ridicule and there's disrespect. And it tends to come from people who are outside the experience, who are looking in. And these are the same kind of people who will tell you that you have to be a fucking moron to join a cult. They're judgmental assholes. And their ego is so big that they're not seeing what you're trying to tell them when you're talking about cults and the danger of cults. They're so full of themselves that they can't see past themselves to see the pain and suffering that occurred in a situation, and they have to judge it. They have to, you guys deserved that, what happened to you, because you were such idiots for not knowing before you could have known. You know, it's that kind of logic. It's like, there's no way you could have known, but you should have known anyway. And then they make fun of you and they ridicule you, and they do it for their own egotistical purposes, because they need to feel superior. Because they know deep down, I believe, that how vulnerable they really are. And they don't want to admit it to themselves. They're in denial about it, even to themselves. And this is not necessarily meant as some kind of vicious attack against these people, but I get a little sick and tired of it, right? After years and years of this, it gets a little old. And I've read into it all the time. I mean, up until last week, you get these comments. So there is that intent of disrespect, of ridicule, of laughing at ex-cult members. There are definitely people who do that, and I would very much appreciate, any efforts in that direction to tone that down or tell those people to get a clue and knock it off. But at the same time, right, having said all that about those guys, I have to return back to the dark humor catharsis side and go, but when you see ex-members getting together and talking about this stuff, you got to let them, kind of say what they want to say, because it's their way of getting the relief that they need to get from that traumatic experience. And obviously that, you can do so in a respectful way, but sometimes you just gotta laugh, and you gotta not be so serious about laughing at things. That in a private situation, in a conversation, in a therapy session, in a palling around at the bar kind of thing, can you make a joke with your friends about your cult experience? Boy, I really drank that Kool-Aid, Of course you can, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I think intent and context has a lot to do with that, but that's generally a little too nuanced for a lot of people. So, but that's my take on it. All right. What do we got here? OBG Foster. How does someone learn a high control situation, avoid analysis paralysis when starting to think for themselves? Oh, how does someone learning a high control situation avoid analysis paralysis when starting to think for themselves? Okay. The number one thing that I think it is probably, if not number one, top 5, maybe top 3. One of the most important things that ex-cult members don't give themselves is time. Cults, by their very nature, tend to be taka, 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 now, go, right? They tend to be that way. There's no time for bullshit because there's no time for thinking. They don't want you sitting around thinking. They want you acting. They want you in motion. They want you doing. And if you are sitting around thinking, it's because you're doing the cult way of doing that, right? Like TM is a lot of sitting around, but it's not sitting around thinking. It's sitting there doing the TM, the meditation mantra, and focusing and concentrating and kind of screwing yourself up because you're doing it so much, trying to literally levitate with meditation, right? Things are often, cults are often, not always, but often, there's an incentivization, or there's some kind of program or operation going that requires your dedication, your work, your support, and your thinking, and you got to be working and thinking about that all the time. And it tends to create a kind of franticness in the mind of a cult member that they're never good enough, strong enough, hard enough, they're not working hard enough, they're not producing enough for the group. And obviously there are times and lulls in the game, and times when you can get some rest, or times when you can have a little bit of fun. But I'm talking in the overall sort of arc of the experience of being in a cult. When you come out, being kind to yourself, giving yourself time to recover, giving yourself time to reorient and find a new perspective, actually find many new perspectives about your experience, that requires time. There's no substitute for or ability to rush that. But because of the franticness of cults, a lot of people want to rush that, and they try to pile too much into themselves too quickly. We see this with ex-Scientologists so much with the, hell, I did it. Remember when I've said many times, the first year when I first got out, I told people out loud, I said, if I'm still doing this in a year, you need to shut me down. This shouldn't take that long. And I was so wrong. I could not have been more wrong, right? It's way more than a year to recover from 27 years of abuse, right? It's going to take you some time. This all goes to your question in terms of the analysis paralysis, because I think one of the reasons it happens, the analysis paralysis, this like, oh my God, all this information, I gotta figure all this out, I gotta navigate through this. You're kind of crunching yourself as an ex-cult member with, I got to do all this now. I got to learn all this now. I got to, like, it's all kind of this frantic thing. I'm sure you guys are getting my point here. I think so I think the antidote for that is stepping back and remembering as a sort of a really fundamental part of cult recovery is it's going to take time. And you can't speed it up. You need whatever amount of time you need. Just because Joe or Sally did something faster or easier than you did doesn't mean shit when it comes to your recovery. You're not Joe and you're not Sally, right? So if Joe got over it in a year, which he definitely did not, but if he says he did, who cares? You need what you need. And you need to give yourself the time to experience what you have to experience. So I think that would help with analysis paralysis. If I'm totally missing the boat right now in my answer and you were on some other tack with this, go ahead and clarify it for me. I'm more than happy to talk more about this from other angles, but this is the first thing that occurred to me when I was looking at your question, OBG. So I hope that is useful and answers the question. But again, let me know if I'm missing somehow. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Oh boy. Red Pill 3000. What's your opinion of the Andrew Tate? Oh man, yeah, the Andrew Tate. I can't stand that guy. You know, I was laughing at myself this week because there were 2 times where I was editing podcasts in the last couple of weeks. I got asked in a Q&A a week or 2 ago about Tucker Carlson. And I went on a roll, right? Tearing that guy apart. And I found myself in my podcasts interviewing a couple of people looking like, you know, like that kind of face that he does, you know, that sort of confused, baffled look, you know, when he's interviewing people. And I found myself doing that face. And I was like, oh my God, I look like Tucker Carlson. I hope nobody makes that comparison. I only bring that up because I'm about to go on a roll on Andrew Tate, right? And I hope I don't end up looking like Andrew Tate. That guy is one of the worst examples of humanity on social media. He's a misogynistic scumbag, and he's apparently a criminal. You know, I guess alleged. Who is it? Romania? He's in Romania, right? And they had him under house arrest for a few months, and he just says stuff that purposefully riles people up, and he knows he's doing that. He's the guy who goes out on the street and fires off a gun into the air on the 4th of July, knowing full well that those bullets are going to come down and maybe hurt somebody. Chances are they won't, but they could. Doesn't care. Doesn't care, right? It's that guy. He's the guy who goes out, doesn't care what anybody else says or thinks about his bad behavior, and he does it purposefully to piss people off, rile them up, make them mad at him, because conflict and controversy attracts attention. And that's what people like him live on, is attention. They are attention vampires, if you will. They must have it, and they will take your hate rather than get nothing from you. They would rather have that than nothing. And there are enough people who find that kind of behavior empowering, inspiring, motivational for themselves. People who are maybe not so great people, but they're kind of getting along in society, and then they see a role model like an Andrew Tate and they go, that's a real man. That's a role model. That's somebody I should be more like him. I should be less afraid. You know, I should be more offensive. I should be more independent. I should be a manlier man, just like he is. And that's the role model aspect of that, which inspires very confused young men mostly to follow this guy, because they're looking for somebody who appears to be powerful, influential, gets all the women, gets all the money. I mean, people like this fly high. Society right now is built to incentivize and reward that kind of behavior. Clearly, it's not even an opinion I have. That is a fact. Our social media society incentivizes attention-seeking people and rewards them for bad behavior. It's not good for us in the long run. And Andrew Tate is just a shithead, a piece of shit who finds a great deal of success in treating people around him like complete garbage, and watching people like him for doing that, and validate him for doing that. Oh, Andrew, you're the man. It's like Grant Cardone. Very similar. This criminal type individual who's sort of roasting all the people who are following them while living large because all these people are following him, It's gross. I mean, it's really gross behavior. It's very vampiric behavior. So that's my take on Andrew Tate. Okay, Fabian, always with the good ones here. How would you have reacted to somebody with a lot of questions and objections as a Scientologist? Well, I tell you exactly how I reacted. I reacted that way many times. I mean, it's not like people, as a course room supervisor, as somebody who was teaching people Scientology directly, and as somebody who administered coursework and auditing work for many, many years, it wasn't like there were never times where people didn't object or stand up and go, hey, wait a minute, or this isn't right, or I'm not doing this, or questions about Hubbard's materials, and that doesn't say that, or this is very confusing, this doesn't make any damn sense. The number of ways to deal with that are in Scientology are limited and very, very clear. Find your misunderstood word, right? Go reread it and find the words or symbols that you don't understand, because what you're saying doesn't make any sense, right? This material does make sense. If you think it doesn't, that sounds like a you problem. It's not a problem with the materials. It's a problem with you. So go sit down in the corner with the dictionary and sort it out. Or here's a word clearer, and you two sit down, and the word clearer is going to work with you, and we're going to find the words you don't understand, and we're going to clear it up. And that's your first level of handling of somebody who has objections or problems or issues, right? Or lots of questions. The materials, answer your questions, read the materials, or listen to the lectures. If that doesn't work, you've done word clearing and more word clearing. Remember, there are like 9 different ways to word clear somebody. And then there's crashing misunderstood word finding. And then there's false data stripping. And then there's a student booster rundown. And there's a student correction list. And there's all these things we can do to you to sort your ass out. If you have lots of questions, right? There's an out point, plus point list analysis. I mean, there's just so many things in Scientology to sort you out. And if all of that doesn't work or isn't working, and you're still being, objectionable or coming up with all these questions, you're going to ethics, because the tech is not going in on you, according to Scientology. So it's not working. The tech is not going in. That's Scientology language for this ain't working. Well, the only reason it's not working is because you, again, this is a you problem. You're out ethics. That's why the tech won't go in, see? It won't work on you because you're off committing crimes. You're off doing stuff that's unethical. We know it because we're trying to get the tech in on you and it won't go in. You keep being a problem. go to ethics. And then the ethics officer is going to sort it out with you. Or I would sit the person down and do the ethics myself, right? And find out, what are you doing? What's going on? Let's examine your personal life. Let's dig in. Let's find out what's going on. What's your out ethics situation? And there we go, right? And away we go with that. And if that doesn't work, and you ethics the guy and ethics the guy and ethics the guy, and it's just not flying, well, you know, maybe Scientology just isn't for you. You know, out you go. See ya. And that's what you do with what we called flat ball bearings in Scientology, right? Is products that won't be products, right? You're trying to produce ball bearings that will work, and here's a flat one. You know, that was the example Hubbard would give. All right. Oh my God. Tate is a perfect example of a guy who tore up his social contract years ago. Laura nailed it. Andrew Tate feels no sense of responsibility for anyone or anything but himself and his own enrichment. He's a total scumbag, that guy. Oh my God, 2:40. Okay, we're going to have to wrap up in about 5 minutes here, guys. Okay, I'm going to have to do this. Let's see if we can pound through. Let's see if we can do some flash answer style answers here. I've failed at this in the past, but let's see if we can do it this time. All right, Red Pill 3000. Do you like or dislike drone shows? I love drone shows. I think drone shows are amazing. I am awed by the amount of work that would go into doing something like that, and programming it and setting it up and practicing it and doing it. I think they're amazing. So far, I've seen some really incredible ones. Young Matador, did you ever wear ribbons in the Sea Org? Tony posted an article years ago showing flag orders describing a ribbon for, among other things, the Battle of Portland. War is hell, man. Yes, we all wore ribbons. They're called campaign bars, and we would get them and very, very much be proud of them. You would get campaign ribbons and bars not only for events that had occurred or actions or projects that you worked on, but you would also get them for courses you completed, missions you completed successfully, even case level stuff sometimes. Those were the kind of things that those bars and ribbons that Sea Org members would wear would signify. And yeah, I had a lot of them. I had a whole stack of those things. I was into it. Okay. Fabian, how do I get somebody on the Scientology mailing list? You are evil. That is an evil question, and I am not going to answer that. Fighting back against the lies. Do you know the Clearwater Chad guy spoofing you on YouTube? I am aware of Chad, and I am aware of the fact that he has been making a record number of videos spoofing me. I banned him from my comment section because I didn't really appreciate that, and I let him know that I didn't appreciate that. And I have a sense of humor as much as anybody else, but I felt that his parodying was very mean-spirited. I really, really don't care if people want to go off and make jokes about me and that kind of thing. You know, I'm a public figure. I get it. People are going to talk about me. Okay, fine. But, you know, being so mean-spirited about me, my education, that kind of stuff, I don't know. I didn't think that was so cool. So I kind of, booted him out of my comment sections. And anyway, whatever. Yeah, I'm aware. Okay. Hans Christian Schwartz. In your studies at uni, did you ever come across a similar concept of engram lock chains in contemporary medicine? No. In fact, that's why I went out of my way to talk about in my metering video when I talked about trauma and the sources of it and how the brain works and with memory and with trauma. I was doing that to compare and contrast against Hubbard's system of engram lock secondary and that whole bullshit. Because those are all just mental constructs that don't really exist. Trauma can be re-stimulated. We call that being triggered. right? There are words and ideas in psychology that have parallels to concepts in Scientology. But I've tried to be super, super clear when describing the Scientology concepts that there's so much more baggage connected with them than just the same concept of a trigger. Restimulation is so much more than just a trigger. There's all this mental mass and energy stuff and this other theory that comes into it, and this idea of a reactive mind, which is a complete fantasy. There is no reactive mind. So restimulation requires that there be a reactive mind in order for the concept to actually make sense. So that's why I try to shove those things apart rather than show how they're the same. I try to show how they're different, because the Scientology stuff has all this other claptrap connected with it that psychology doesn't. Okay, Geekdom 101. Deep question. What's the story behind implants that LRH claimed Thetans received to deceive? Something about God, the devil, etc. I think OT8 audits those out. Oh boy. Okay, so this is where you need my entire chapter on why Scientology thinks it's saving the world. Seriously, because I could read that entire chapter to you to answer your question today. It's actually in here in my book. I don't normally do this, but I'm going to refer you to that. Now, also though, if you go to my Critical Clips channel and look for implant or whole track or anything like that, in the title, you will find answers already to implants and OT3. What you're talking about is actually the OT3 narrative. These are not audited out on OT8. They are audited out or start to be addressed on OT3. And it has to do with the body thetans, and it has to do with the Xenu implant. There's 3 weeks of implanting that occurred during the Xenu incident 75 million years ago. And those implants have to do with God and religion and bodies aging and the need for sex and the need for food and modern societal constructs and a bunch of other stuff. All this, they took 3 weeks to implant in all of us, according to L. Ron Hubbard. So that's where all that comes out of. But if you want the whole full story on it, that's why I wrote a whole chapter on it in my book and have addressed it in earlier videos. So you can check that out. And you've watched a bunch of the videos. Good, keep going. And look for implants and stuff like that, because I've done pretty full explanations on that stuff, and I believe that you'll find it on that channel. Okay, good. Oh, Stuart Gorman. Which cult would Benson be most likely to fall into if that were possible? Oh, no, I want to think about my little doggy in a cult. Oh my God. I'd see, here's the thing. I don't think Benson would. Not that Benson's not, as a human, wouldn't be susceptible like everybody else is, but he's so damn stubborn. Yeah, have you ever dealt with a Shih Tzu? They are stubborn dogs. He's really got a strong streak in him, you know. He's wonderful. He really is. He's very cooperative. Cult of the salmon food. Exactly. There we go. Okay, have not done that. Let's do one more, and then I really got to go. Let's see. Clearwater Chad, good stream. Hi, Chad. Guy just keeps making accounts. All right, I'm going to choose. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough, Tom, that you disagree with my characterization of Ayn Rand. Not a problem. Again, I'm not an expert on her, so I'm only giving you my impressions from a little bit of a distance and from years ago of having read her book. So we can totally agree to disagree on that. No problem. What? I did not know there were scuba places in Denver. Thank you, Stuart, for mentioning that. Okay, John O'Nolan asks, recently a man in Pakistan was beaten and killed by a mob for apparently criticizing Islam. Why doesn't the world come down hard on Pakistani society? A lot of people in the world do come down hard on Pakistani society, just like they do other abuses in the Middle East and other parts of the world, India, China, Russia, etc. There's all kinds of people in the world who are outraged and very, very, very upset about the conditions in these countries and the way that religious bigotry and violence and honor killing and things like that can happen in Islamic societies. There is some real barbarism in that. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, in terms of answering your question of why the world doesn't come down on that, is because local problems with every single country and society exist in such magnitude that people ain't got time to go down on Pakistan when they got their own problems here, like, for example, here in the United States with Christian nationalism and the American Taliban. I don't hold back on that. You guys know how I feel about, you know, hardcore culty behavior and radicalized stuff right here on our shores. I'm not down with that, and I am much more concerned about that here in the States than I am about what's going on in Pakistan. Now, I don't like what's going on in Pakistan either, but when it comes to what am I going to do something about, well, I'm going to talk about the stuff closer to home. And you're going to find that with most people to be that way. And that's why the world isn't coming down on Pakistan. Is the world is made up of a whole lot of people who have very guilty consciences and a whole lot of countries. And, you know, countries have interests. They don't have friends. So anyway, yeah, it's pretty, yeah, happens everywhere. Exactly. Okay, guys. So almost 2 full hours here. The only reason I got to get going is because I got to record Tony. We usually record in about 10 minutes and I'm so far behind right now. So I'm going to get going. This has been a lot of fun answering your questions. I hope you guys had fun, with me today. Yeah. Yeah, Benson might join the Moonies if he was going to let him turn into a werewolf. Stuart, you are awesome, man. That is the best answer. I wish I could have come up with that. Okay, guys. Yeah, let's go ahead and wrap up. You will see After Scientology Straight Up and Vertical tomorrow, and regular schedule this week, as far as I can tell. No surprise live streams, but we'll see. We'll see. All right. Bye-bye, guys.